Have you ever wondered, amidst all the noise, ambition, and pressure of this life, when was the last time you truly lived? We wake up each morning, rush through the long day, yet rarely pause to feel a single breath, a smile, or that fleeting moment of inner peace. We strive to have more money, fame, recognition, but the more we gain, the emptier we feel. Perhaps it is not the world outside that exhausts us, but the restless mind within that never knows how to rest. Buddhism calls this the ignorance of the modern age, the state in which we lose awareness, lose connection with the present moment, and with our own true nature. Yet it is precisely from this very loss that a path begins to open, the path of return, the path of 12 fragments of Buddhist wisdom, simple principles with the power to transform one's entire life. If you have ever longed for a more peaceful existence, if you have ever wondered how to let go, to understand yourself, to love more deeply, and to live lightly in a world that never stops changing, then this journey is meant for you. For within each principle you are about to hear lies not merely an ancient teaching, but a key that allows you to see yourself clearly, to awaken, to heal, and to live more fully each day. Let us begin this journey not to discover something new, but to rediscover what was once lost, the stillness within your own heart. 1. Realize non-attachment, letting go to be free. Imagine holding a handful of sand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers, until only a few silent grains remain in your empty palm. Life is the same. We cling to love, fame, money, even the things long gone, as if letting go would mean losing ourselves. Yet the tighter we hold on, the more it hurts. Because the nature of life is not to be grasped, but to be flowed with. The Buddha taught. Suffering arises from attachment. When we insist that life must follow our will, we forge invisible chains around the heart. We want others to love us forever. We want youth never to fade. We want the future to be certain. But life is impermanent. Flowers bloom and wither. People come and go. Every effort to control draws us farther from the present moment, the only place where true living happens. Letting go does not mean giving up or becoming indifferent. It is an act of courage, the courage to accept that nothing truly belongs to us forever. When we release, we do not lose. We are set free, free from fear, free from the obsession to keep, free from the urge to outshine another. Look at the sky. It never tries to hold on to a single cloud, yet because of that, it remains vast and open. Likewise, when we stop clinging, the heart expands, and love begins to flow unconditional, boundless, serene. Perhaps happiness is not found in having more, but in learning to carry less. Let go of one expectation, and you lift one burden. Let go of one fear, and a new doorway opens. Each act of release is a homecoming to yourself, to the present, to the still breath you once forgot. And then, when you no longer try to control life, life itself begins to unfold, like a lotus rising pure and free from the mud, untouched, yet full of grace. For only when you finally let go will you see that you have been holding the whole sky all along. 2. Wake up, staying awake in the stream of life. Once you have learned to let go, a new space opens within you, no longer heavy with what has been lost, yet easily swept away by what is coming. When the mind is free from attachment, the next challenge is this: to remain awake amid the flow of life, not to be carried away by the storm of haste, comparison, and forgetfulness. To be awake does not mean to withdraw from the world, but to see the world as it truly is, without adding judgment, without subtracting truth. People often imagine enlightenment as something distant, attainable only in a monastery or deep within the mountains. But awakening is the simplest thing and also the hardest. Long ago, a student asked his Zen master, "Master, how can I attain enlightenment?" The master smiled and replied, "When I eat, I eat. When I walk, I walk." The student was puzzled. "But everyone eats and walks." The master said, "Yes, but when they eat, their minds are elsewhere. And when they walk, their thoughts have already run 10 steps ahead." That answer, simple as it seems, opens the very heart of the Buddha's path. Awakening is not about doing something great, but about living fully in what is small. When you drink a sip of water, do you feel the coolness flowing down your throat? When you look at a flower, do you truly see it bloom, or merely glance as if it were an image already known? We are not short of miracles, we are short of eyes to see them. Awareness is the art of returning to the breath, to the sound of the rain, to the gaze of another person before you. In a world so loud, where everyone rushes toward must and more, mindfulness is the lantern that keeps us from losing ourselves. It asks nothing of us but to be fully present with what already is. When eating, just eat. When walking, just walk. When sadness comes, just be sad. Do not flee, do not judge. For in the very moment we pause and look deeply, sorrow becomes a teacher, and silence becomes a sacred verse. And then, when you live with an awakened heart, even the ordinary turns miraculous. The wind no longer blows in vain, the rain becomes a bell, and the morning light becomes a gentle reminder that the miracle was never far away. It has always been here, in this breath, this moment, where you inhale, exhale, and finally know you are truly alive. 3. Change yourself, change the world, inner transformation for outer peace. When you begin to live with awareness, a profound realization dawns. The outer world is no longer separate from the inner one. Every thought, every emotion you carry is like a drop of water flowing into the vast ocean of humanity. And from this truth, the third teaching arises: if you wish to change the world, you must first change yourself. There is an old story that tells of a man who constantly complained about the darkness. He lamented that no one in his village would light a lamp, that no one cared enough to make the road brighter. Every night, he sat there, blaming the world and waiting for someone else to bring the light. One evening, in a moment of anger, he accidentally dropped a match. As he bent down to pick it up, he noticed a small candle nearby. Without much thought, he struck the match and lit it. The flame was faint, but strangely enough, the once dark room became warm and peaceful, and in that instant he understood. What the world needs is not another complaint, but a small light kindled within each heart. The world, in truth, is a mirror reflecting the state of our own mind. When our hearts are filled with resentment, we see faults everywhere. When our hearts overflow with gratitude, everything around us becomes gentle. To see flowers bloom, we must first plant the seeds deep in the soil. We cannot force the petals open with clenched hands. In the same way, to make the world a better place, we cannot simply wait for others to change. We must begin within ourselves with a kind word, a good deed, a moment of listening. The Buddha once said, "The greatest victory is to conquer oneself, for when the heart is pure, the world around it also shines. When we love, others reflect that love back. When we live with compassion, even cruelty dissolves like mist before the Sunday." Inner transformation is not a grand act, but a daily practice, pausing before anger arises, smiling when others err, choosing understanding over judgment. Each moment of self-awareness becomes a brick in the foundation of peace. In the end, you will see, the world does not need to be saved. It only needs to be seen through eyes that have become still. So begin with yourself. Light a small lamp within your heart. When your heart is bright, your path also shines. And when millions of such lamps are lit, the darkness of the world will fade away without a single sound. To change the world, do not look outward. Look within where the true flame begins. 4. Live deeply, living fully with the awareness of impermanence. As you begin to transform yourself, a deeper truth reveals itself. The world does not stand still, waiting for us to be ready. Everything around us is in constant motion, arising, fading, and arising again, like waves endlessly merging into the vast ocean. And it is here that the next lesson unfolds. To live fully in every breath, with the awareness that all things are impermanent. Each breath is a tiny lifetime born, existing, and passing away. Inhaling, you receive life. Exhaling, you let it go. And yet, paradoxically, it is through this letting go that life continues. So it is with everything. Existence becomes real only when we cherish the moment it is here, instead of fearing the moment it leaves. One day, a man asked a Zen master, "Master, why do people fear loss so much?" The master did not answer right away. He simply bent down, picked up a fallen petal, gazed at it for a while, and smiled. "The flower does not die," he said. "It only changes form." That single sentence was like a bell echoing through the heart. Everything we call loss is in truth only transformation. Leaves fall to nourish the soil. The soil gives birth to new buds. The sun sets only to rise again, more radiant than before. Impermanence is not to be feared, it is the rhythm of the universe, the very breath of life itself. When we truly understand this, we stop fearing the end. Because nothing is ever truly lost, it simply no longer exists in the form we recognize. And when we see the invisible threads connecting all things, loneliness dissolves. You realize that the drop of water you drink today once belonged to a cloud, an ocean, perhaps even a being who lived long before you. Everything continues. Nothing is ever apart. To live deeply means to miss none of it, not even the most ordinary moment. When you wash dishes, listen to the water's song that is the music of the present. When you walk, feel the breeze against your skin. That is the lesson of impermanence. Because every passing second is unrepeatable. No two moments are ever the same. And one day, when you look upon a withered flower, you too will smile just as the Zen master did, knowing that within death there is still life. Within every ending, a new beginning. To live fully is to neither cling nor turn away. It is simply to be present, to be grateful, and to smile gently at all that changes. 5. Compassion. Living with a heart of loving kindness. When you learn to live deeply and understand that everything is impermanent, you begin to see the world with new eyes, no longer blaming, no longer judging. You realize that everyone carries some form of pain within them, even those who have hurt you. And it is here that the next lesson emerges: to live with compassion. Compassion is not weakness. It is the courage of a heart that no longer fears being hurt. A compassionate person is not one who has never suffered, but one who has walked through suffering and chosen not to pass it on. Long ago, there was a man who was insulted in front of a crowd. The words cut through him like knives, yet instead of reacting, he simply bowed his head and smiled softly. Someone asked him, "Why didn't you respond? Why didn't you defend yourself?" He replied gently, "Because I saw the pain behind their words. Only those who are hurting feel the need to hurt others. just to remember they still exist. That response was more than patience, it was deep understanding. When we see that the root of anger is pain, our hearts naturally soften. Just as when we see a child crying, we do not scold them, we want to hold them. Compassion is like that, not about changing others, but healing ourselves through understanding. The Buddha taught that compassion is the foundation of all enlightenment, for when the heart overflows with love, there is no longer a boundary between self and other. When we forgive others, we are freeing ourselves from the chains of resentment. Hatred never ceases by hatred. It ceases only through love. To live with compassion does not mean letting others harm you or remaining silent before injustice. It means to act with both wisdom and love, to speak what must be spoken, but with a heart that no longer seeks to wound. Compassion is a silent yet immeasurable power. It makes you patient when others are angry, helps you listen when others only wish to argue, and most importantly allows you to stay peaceful even in the midst of life's storms. When you choose love over reaction, forgiveness over resentment, you are planting a seed of light within your own heart, and that seed will blossom into serenity. For in the end, compassion is not something you give to others. It is the gift you give to your own heart. 6. Disarm the ego, lower the self, elevate the soul. When your heart has softened through compassion, you begin to see something more clearly. Most of our suffering does not come from others, it comes from our own ego. That restless voice inside that always wants to be right, to win, to be recognized, to be loved in its own way. And so, the next lesson is among the hardest on the path of awakening, to humble the ego in order to raise the soul. The ego is like a veil that clouds the light of truth. It makes us see life through the narrow lens of me and them. When praised, we feel joy. When criticized, we feel wounded. We become slaves to fleeting reactions, forgetting that beyond all of this, we already belong to something vast and whole, the great flow of existence itself. Once, a pilgrim came to the Buddha and asked, "Blessed One, who am I?" The Buddha smiled and said, "You are the river seeking its way back to the ocean." Those words echoed like a gentle reminder. Each of us is a river, sometimes winding, sometimes carrying silt or muddy water, yet no matter how far it travels, it always flows toward the sea, where it dissolves, nameless, boundless. When the ego disappears, there is no longer I and they, only we, one current in the same eternal flow. When you begin to release the ego, a strange lightness fills your heart. Praise no longer inflates you, and criticism no longer wounds you, because you understand that both are merely echoes of others, while you remain anchored in the clarity of your true nature within. Letting go of the ego does not mean denying your worth. It means recognizing that your worth lies in harmony, not separation. Like a musical note, beautiful on its own, yet truly meaningful only when it blends into the grand symphony of the universe. In life, you will see that every conflict, every misunderstanding, every division springs from the ego. The moment you stop needing to win, stop needing to prove, peace quietly enters. And in that stillness, wisdom begins to blossom and love begins to grow. Humbling the ego does not make you smaller. It makes you infinite. For when you are no longer a single drop of water, you become the ocean itself. 7. Remove the 3 poisons, cleansing greed, anger, and ignorance. When you have learned to humble the ego, your heart becomes open and still like a lake after the rain. Yet even the calmest lake can be stirred, not by the winds outside, but by the quiet fires burning within greed, anger, and ignorance. These are the three poisons the Buddha called the roots of all suffering. Greed makes us crave more, even when we already have enough. Anger makes us burn, even when there is nothing worth burning for. And ignorance, the blindness of the heart, keeps us from seeing that both are consuming us from within. These three are like tiny flames flickering inside the mind. If left unnoticed, they can burst into fire, devouring the peace we have worked so hard to build. Look closely at a single day in your life. When greed arises, your mind loses its stillness. You compare, you desire, you feel lack in the midst of abundance. When anger flares up, reason disappears. A single word or glance can ignite fury, and soon regret follows, for the very words you spoke in haste. And when ignorance takes over, you no longer see what is right or wrong, only yourself as the center of everything. Zen teaches, when you see the fire within, do not pour oil on it. Breathe. Simple words, yet profoundly wise. For every breath you take creates space between you and the fire. You begin to see it, not as something to fight, but as something to understand. Like a lantern keeper who stops fanning the wind, you allow the flame to soften and extinguish itself through awareness. To remove the three poisons is not to chase them out of your life, but to recognize their presence and not let them rule you. When greed arises, smile gently and remind yourself, I already have enough. When anger rises, remain silent and breathe. When ignorance clouds your mind, pause and let understanding light your way. The Buddha said, within every heart dwell both Buddha and Mara. The victor is not the stronger one, but the more awakened one. If you learn to observe, the three poisons become your three teachers. Greed teaches contentment, anger teaches patience, ignorance teaches wisdom. Once you understand this, you see there is nothing to destroy, only to transform. Turn the fire of anger into the warmth of compassion. Turn ambition into purposeful energy. Turn ignorance into deep inquiry. And when the heart is no longer scorched by greed, anger, or delusion, even in the midst of life's fiercest storms, you will sit in stillness, smiling gently, like one watching a candle quietly go out in the night. 8. Embrace death, facing death to truly learn how to live. When you have learned to cleanse the poisons of the mind, the fires of affliction begin to fade. Yet deep within, one fear still lingers, the greatest fear of all, the fear of death. And it is only when we dare to face it without denial, without trembling, that we finally learn what it means to live. One autumn afternoon, a passerby saw an old monk sitting quietly beside a grave, his eyes soft, his lips curved in a gentle smile. The man asked, "Master, how can you smile in a place of sorrow?" The monk replied, "Because I have lost no one, they have merely changed form." At first, his words sounded paradoxical, yet within them lies a profound truth. To the awakened mind, death is not an end, but a transformation. Just as water becomes vapor, vapor becomes clouds, and clouds fall again. As rain, nothing is ever lost, only reshaped, reborn. We fear death because we mistake it for loss. Loss of loved ones, loss of the body, loss of everything familiar. But if we look deeper, we realize that every moment is a small death. The breath that leaves will never return. Yesterday has already died in this very moment. And yet, through these countless little deaths, life continues renewed and reborn. Those who know they will die are the ones who truly begin to live. For they no longer waste their days on trivial pursuits. They love more deeply, forgive more easily, and give thanks even for the smallest things. Knowing all is temporary, They let go of stubborn pride. Knowing everyone will one day leave, they treasure every moment they still have. Buddhism teaches us to contemplate death, not to become morbid, but to awaken. When you look directly into death, you see life more clearly fragile, yes, but infinitely precious. You stop living as though immortal and begin to live as though each day were a gift. Death does not end life. It simply opens another door of awareness. Just as the night does not kill the day, it only hides the sun for a while, so dawn may return even brighter. Sit quietly and reflect. If today were your last day, how would you live differently? Perhaps you would say thank you more often. Perhaps you would be slower to anger, quicker to love. And that, precisely, is what death teaches, that this life is too sacred to be wasted in fear. When you no longer fear death, you finally begin to live. 9. Right livelihood. Working with mindfulness. When you have learned to face death without fear, you begin to live differently, gently, consciously, with a clear sense of what truly matters. You no longer chase after titles or wealth, but instead ask yourself, if tomorrow never comes, am I doing something meaningful today? And from that question arises the next lesson to work with mindfulness. Happiness does not come from status, position, or salary. It comes from the meaning behind every action. Even the smallest task, when done with a clear and peaceful heart, becomes meditation. But a grand pursuit, if driven by pride or competition, only deepens exhaustion. There is an old story of a shoemaker who lived in a small mountain village. Each day he sat by his window, quietly stitching each pair of shoes with patient hands. One passerby asked, "Don't you find it dull, spending your whole life just making shoes?" The shoemaker smiled and replied, "I sew each pair as if mending my own soul. When the needle pierces the leather, I feel it stitching the torn places within me. And when a shoe is finished, I know someone will walk more gently upon their path. For me, that is enough." A simple story, yet it carries the essence of right livelihood, one of the eightfold paths the Buddha taught. To work with mindfulness is not merely to earn a living, it is to live rightly. Right livelihood means engaging in work that harms neither others, nor any living being, nor your own peace of mind. It means acting with awareness rather than ambition. Whether you plant a tree, teach a child, or cook a meal, if you do it with a tranquil heart, your labor becomes a form of meditation. Mindful work frees us from the frenzy of modern life. When you work with full presence, not to prove, not to compete, you begin to feel the quiet joy of simply being here. You stop asking, "When will this be done?" and begin asking, "With what heart am I doing it?" The Buddha said, "Work as if it were your prayer." When you work with gratitude, attention, and love, every action becomes an offering to life itself. And then you realize, work is no longer a burden, but a sacred practice, a way to understand yourself and to sow seeds of goodness. Choose a work that lets you not only live, but live rightly, where every drop of sweat becomes a pearl of awakening, and every day of labor is a homecoming to yourself. 10. The nature of giving, the art of letting go through generosity. When you have learned to work with mindfulness, every action you take begins to hold meaning. And then you realize that the deepest meaning of work of life itself does not lie in how much you receive, but in how much you are willing to give. That is the next lesson, the art of giving. Giving does not make you poorer, it makes your heart wider. In a world built on competition, people often fear that giving will leave them with less. Yet in truth, every time you share, you expand the boundaries of who you are. The more you give, the greater your heart becomes, The more you cling, the smaller it grows. There is a beautiful story about a poor child living in a small village. One day, a neighbor gave the child a small loaf of bread. Just as the child sat down to eat, he noticed another boy, thin and hungry, watching him from afar. The child hesitated for a moment, then gently broke the bread in half and offered a piece to the boy. A passerby asked, "Why didn't you keep it for yourself? You're hungry too." The child smiled softly and said, "I don't have much, but I can share." That simple line is the purest melody of compassion. For the essence of giving is not measured by possessions, but by the heart. The Buddha taught, "Those who know how to give are those who truly know how to live." Giving is not the act of the wealthy, but of the awakened, those who understand that true abundance is born within. Every kind word, every moment of listening, every gentle embrace for someone in sorrow, all are forms of offering. You need not enter a temple to practice goodness, for life itself is the grandest temple of all. When you listen with your heart, you offer something far greater than money. You offer your presence. The art of giving is not about how much, but from what state of mind. A small gift, when offered with love, can warm an entire soul. Conversely, a great gift given with calculation only burdens the heart. When you learn to give without expecting in return, you enter a higher freedom, freedom from fear, from scarcity, from the ego that clings. For in that moment, you are no longer a vessel trying to contain. You become the flowing stream itself. Give not because you have much, but because you have understood. Everything you hold will one day fade, but what you give will last forever. 11. Connection, awakening through interbeing. Once you have learned the art of giving, your heart no longer closes itself off. Compassion begins to ripple outward, like gentle waves spreading across still water. And within that movement, you awaken to a profound truth. We are never truly separate. Each human being is a thread in the invisible web of the universe. Every action, every word, every thought we create weaves another strand into that great net of interdependence. This is the 11th teaching connection in mindfulness. In Buddhism, the community of those who practice together and walk the path of awareness is called the Sangha, a spiritual fellowship. Yet this concept reaches far beyond religion. If you look deeply, you will see that all of humanity is one vast Sangha. We breathe the same air, stand on the same earth, and are all touched by the consequences of one another's choices. Whenever we help someone, the thread between us shines, and that light reflects back upon ourselves. Like lighting a candle for another, the very room we sit in grows brighter. For the energy of love and kindness never travels in only one direction. It always circles back, warming the giver as much as the receiver. Once, a man asked a Zen master, "How can we make the world suffer less?" The master smiled and said, "Begin by truly listening to one person." Listening, it seems so small, yet it is the deepest form of connection. When you listen with full presence, you are not only hearing another's story, you are hearing yourself within it. Because deep down, their pain is also your pain, their joy, your joy. When the mind becomes still, you begin to see others not as them, but as part of us. The shopkeeper, the driver, the stranger on the street, all are walking beside you on the same journey of being human. Every kind glance, every small act of care contributes to the weaving of that great web of compassion. Today's world seems more connected than ever, yet people feel lonelier than ever, because we connect through signals, not through hearts. Mindfulness is the act of returning to connect once more through life itself, through the eyes, through gentle words, through a quiet understanding that needs no explanation. When you help another, you do not just light their path, you illuminate your own. For within the vast web of interbeing that holds the universe together, each one of us is a part of one another. 12. Mindful eating, gratitude in every meal. When you realize that all beings are woven together by invisible threads of connection, you begin to look upon the world with new eyes, eyes filled with gratitude. From the wind that passes through your hair, to the sunlight that warms your skin, to the grain of rice in your bowl, everything is the result of countless hands and countless blessings coming together. And it is here that the final lesson reveals itself: to eat with mindfulness and gratitude. One quiet afternoon, a Zen master sat before a bowl of plain rice. He gazed at it for a long moment, then smiled and said to his students, "In this grain of rice, the entire sky resides." At first, his words seemed like poetry, yet they were a profound truth. For to create a single grain of rice, there must be rain, soil, sunlight, and wind. There must be those who plant, those who harvest, those who grind, and those who cook. The entire universe works together so that one simple bowl of rice may sit before us. Each time we lift it to our lips, we are lifting the fruit of endless interbeing. And yet, in the rush of modern life, we have forgotten this. We eat while talking, while watching screens, while our minds wander elsewhere. Food has become habit, not a gift. The Buddha taught that every meal can be a meditation. When we eat mindfully, we nourish not only the body but also the heart. Try, just once, to slow down. Look at the grain of rice. Smell its gentle fragrance. Chew slowly enough to hear the rhythm of life dissolving in your mouth. In that very moment, you will awaken to the truth: you are alive, receiving the energy of earth and sky, of labor and love. When you eat with gratitude, you will find contentment even in a small bowl of rice. You will no longer waste food, because to waste it is to disregard the blessings that made it possible. Your heart will soften, and every bite will become a silent prayer of thanks to life itself. And miraculously, when the body is nourished by mindful food, the mind too is fed with peace. There is no longer craving, no longer haste, no longer the emptiness that seeks to be filled for you. Now know that true fullness is not in the stomach, but in the grateful heart. Look at your bowl of rice today. Within it lies not only grain, but also sunlight, rain, wind, soil, and human kindness. Each time you eat in mindfulness, you are lighting a quiet candle of gratitude to life, to the universe, and to your own awakened being. When you have walked through these 12 principles, you will realize that life never needed anything more. Peace does not come from what we accumulate, but from what we can release. Less grasping, less anger, less attachment, and the empty space that remains within is not a void, but the very room through which light enters. Buddhism has never been a path toward becoming someone else. It is the journey of returning to yourself, to that original essence, where the mind is no longer pulled by the past nor frightened by the future. When the heart is calm, everything naturally finds its rightful place. When we stop struggling against life, life stops struggling against us. Happiness, in truth, has never left you. It has only been hidden beneath layers of desire, expectation, and fear. When the wind of awareness passes through, the dust scatters, and you see again the clear sky that was always there. Only when your mind is still like a lake can life reflect itself in full. And when you live with compassion, detachment, and awareness, you do not merely transform your own life, you quietly transform the world. So before this journey closes, take a single moment. Breathe deeply. Look around. Feel the rhythm of life unfolding, the sound of wind beyond the window, the warmth within your chest. Then ask yourself a simple yet profound question. In this very moment, am I truly living or merely drifting? If you pause long enough to listen, you will hear the answer not from the world outside, but from the deepest stillness within. That is the silence after awakening.